I'd like to call the meeting to order. We can stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We have no visitors signed in wishing to speak. As far as boards and committees, last meeting we discussed we're going to continue to do our exit poll. I know Mrs. Custodi sent it out. If everyone had time to take a look at it. Just continue as is. Any revisions? Everybody good? Okay.
I think the consistency is important.
Yeah. Yep.
But one thing I was wondering if we could add, since there's a lot of people that maybe come out to vote but don't necessarily have a connection to us other than that, if maybe we could have like just a little slip of paper, that says, do you know that you can watch the board meetings at, this website address? So that people know that they can see the board meetings. Because I mentioned it to somebody today and they said, oh, really? I mean, it would just be, like one piece of paper cut into four maybe, just, like a little kind of take it with you.
How would you feel about incorporating it into our budget newsletter?
Yeah.
We could do that as well.
Probably the people that come to vote would be the same people that would bother to read the budget newsletter too, so yeah, it should work.
Okay.
I'm just trying to find a way to reach more people, it's tough. We appreciate everybody who's here today, but normally there aren't that many people.
We got a big fan section, it looks like.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm a business consultant.
Mr. Pennell and I today attended a meeting at the Amherst Senior Center with people from the town. We were invited. Apparently the town is going to be starting a housing study that they should have done by the fall sometime, and looking at the town as a whole and then breaking it up into different pockets as to where they might need to invest resources, policies, what have you. So they were looking, all the school districts in the town were represented there. They consider us stakeholders in this. They may call upon us for information, and then we'll be able to see the draft report and stuff sometime in the fall when it's done. So is that a pretty good summary?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Have they done this before, or is this sort of a new thing? that
Well,
they're-
it's a new thing.
Okay.
Yeah, they've hired a consultant, who's a planner, and
He's a professor at Buff State, and then
Okay.
does this. I guess they've done it for the city of Tonawanda, and
yeah, a couple other places.
That's interesting.
so they really dive deep
Yeah.
into all these different variables so. Do we have any other board or committee reports?
Yes. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, but I have a report from the Alternative Funding Committee. I believe you all had this in your board update, but wanted to provide information that the Alternative Funding Committee, which has historically now coordinated the Show Us Your Stripes event, is going to be discontinued as a committee. The most recent meeting, there was a significant discussion about some of the changes with the Alumni Association that are coming, and some of the decrease in attendance at the Show Us Your Stripes event over the years, and some of the struggles with continuing to raise money in this regard. So the committee decided that the focus will be put on the Alumni Association. So the district, there will be a liaison from the district to attend their board meetings and still be involved in grant distribution. So the money that's currently in the Alternative Funding Committee account will be distributed to 4 grants that were approved at the meeting. Mobility and math classroom slates, new starting blocks for the middle school swimming pool, Bison's Kid Day bus, and outdoor speaker system for the track and field. And then the account, the Show Us Your Stripes account, will be depleted at that point. And so the committee has served its purpose at this time. And then I also attended the Erie County Association of School Boards meeting last Thursday. They did announce the award winners for the upcoming award meeting. Unfortunately, or awards dinner, unfortunately, we didn't win again this year like we did last year, which was really nice, but Grand Island got an award this year. But there is a new associate director of ECASB, Dr. Jill O'Malley, who's board president in Kenton. And she's very active, I think, with those who are on the advocacy committee. And there's a lot of great activity and progress going with the ECASB, I think, with the new executive director who came on board not too long ago, and now the associate director position being filled. They're updating the bylaws, they're improving communications with a new communications committee. They worked to improve all their budget and finance practices. They're creating a listing of the library materials that they have so that any district who participates in ECASB can have access to those materials in their library. They're going to update the website and have the library listing, among other things, on their website. So a lot of nice progress that I've seen. You know, I've been the delegate for a few years now, and I think this is the most active I've seen the board there. A couple things to put on the calendar for next calendar year. August 7th is their law forum, and November 16th they're going to have an advocacy training Saturday morning from 8:30 to 12 on that day, November 16th. And that'll be just, you know, what can you do in the district in terms of advocacy efforts. They are still going to do that legislative breakfast. They set the date for January 25th of 2020. And interesting that they're going to be doing, which I don't believe will affect us this year, but they are starting the 1920 school year to create a new Board of Education member cohort training. So they're going to put trainings 3 times a year for new board members. So they do, you know, the new board member training Saturdays. They do the finance and the board participation. Training meetings that you have to go to, but that these will be kind of additional growing events over the course of the year. So it really was a nice thing to hear some of these new things they're doing. And as usual, you know, there's a nice round table with all the participating districts at the end of the meeting. And there were just a few things to note that one district has had some really great success using vaping sensors in their bathrooms that have dramatically decreased incidents and led to, you know, some consequences for vaping in bathrooms. Another district does community walks where they actually announce dates in advance, and they do it in the spring and the fall, and they have, like, you know, 20 people, board members, administrators, things like that. They just go and walk the neighborhoods and knock on doors and answer questions and have conversations with the people in the community. One of the districts is using telemedicine with their school nurses now, so they just launched that, so that was kind of an interesting piece of news to put that into place. And there is one of the districts that is investigating, they have a bell time committee. They're investigating the thought that, you know, high school kids might need to attend school later and elementary kids earlier. So it's a very long, hard, difficult process that they're going through to look at this issue. And I don't think they've come to any conclusions in that regard, but interesting to hear what some of the other districts are doing.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have any report? All right, then we'll move into the superintendent's report.
Oh, great. I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. Ilg and Coach Higgins and several of our unified basketball athletes here as a follow-up to Dr. Ilg's previous presentation when you approved the addition of unified basketball to our athletic repertoire. And Dr. Ilg and Coach Higgins have, I think, a special announcement and or invitation for you, and an update on where we are with the creation of unified basketball.
Yes, so I'll be quick and sweet here. So thank you for having us tonight. I have a couple of student athletes here tonight, as well as our assistant coach here, Ben. But we're very excited. We're in week 3 of practices. It's going great within the gymnasium. Coach Higgins is doing a wonderful job inspiring our student athletes as well as our partners. Our first game is coming up May 7th, so as soon as we get back from break. And our student athletes are here, obviously, to invite you. We have a gift for all the board members as well as to Mr. Pinella. And we just wanted to invite you to our first game, which is May 7th at 4:15 at the high school. We're really looking forward to the start of our season, and the student athletes have had a wonderful time so far. So I have a couple gifts and everything for you guys. So we have Kaylee, Nate, Ben, and George here with us tonight. So, and they're gonna help distribute all the gifts for you. So come on, guys. Mr. Stein, George Ruga, and Mrs. Ernst.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the gift.
Thank you.
So you all can see what's in the bag here.
That's my matching shirt. And the kids designed with Mrs. Bakowitz in class the invitations that you'll see. So Thomas, who's not here tonight, did all of the typing, and the kids did the designs. Even the students of Mary's who are not participating are involved as well. So it's been great.
And we currently have 15 kids that are on the roster from our partners, student athletes, and they're having a great experience and having fun and really excited for our first game, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So we just wanted to say thank you so much, and hopefully you can join us for their first game here at Amherst on May 7th.
Thank you very much for coming.
Can I get a picture of that,
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Elk, who are they playing?
Frontier.
Oh, it's in schedules in here.
Frontier. First game against Frontier.
A lot of games.
So.
There is one.
I'm also pleased to welcome Mr. Belisle and several members of our Pupil Personnel Services staff here tonight to give you an update on student services and some of the planning we've been doing around mental health and social emotional learning. Welcome.
Thanks. There's half the STEM club left. This other half, I'm pretty sure is not here for us, but I know you are. I know why they're here. Yes. Oh, great. So we are here to provide an update on the mental health mandate. I think some of you may be somewhat familiar with that. So it's the mandate put out by the state out for question in January of 2018. And then, interestingly enough, we had about 3 or 4 months to get it up in play for July 2018. Luckily for us, we actually had some things in place prior to that, working towards some updated and better services for our students already. So before I get started, I want to introduce, so actually I'll let you guys introduce yourselves if you don't mind. We're minus Mr. Benton. He's going to be joining us simulcast. Actually, no, it's going to be a video. I'm not that technically savvy, but he will be joining us on the screen here shortly. Well, why don't you guys introduce yourselves? I'm going to turn this light off.
I'm Julie Terry. I'm the school counselor at Amherst Middle School.
I'm Jennifer Noe. I'm school social worker at Smallwood.
I'm Melissa Stasio, school counselor at Windermere.
So we do have these three live. So having said all that, we with the mandate, essentially there's always a growing issue with our students, right? Throughout, not just our students, but throughout the country, and we hear with mental health needs, as well as drug use, with opioids, what have you. Those always hit the front page. But in addition to that, the commissioner put out new regulations that I was talking about in early 2018. So our objective today, there it is to really focus on these two first areas, and this sort of gives an outline of our strategic plan as well. So sort of, you can tell the strategic plan is sort of embedded in our agenda here for this evening. We're going to start with just reviewing the legislation, some of the mandates, some of the key points, if you will, and we won't go over the full nice thick document, but I'll hit the key points with you. Then we're going to focus on priority 1, which is learning and achievement. Because as we work through this, we really wanted to focus on the curriculum, and then as we move forward, it'll be embedded within a larger context of our student life and Amherst Pride, which will be things such as behavior support teams, and we'll provide some information to you in the future around those. Our family support center, which I think I've alluded to in the past with everyone. And lastly, our wellness programming, and that's in addition to the great work Dr. Ilg has already done with our students. This will be more for our staff and faculty. So that's more to come in the future. The state's goal has really been around prevention, treatment, and stigma around mental health in particular. So real quick, the outline is just some of the key points I've sort of highlighted here for you. They both link back, and if you've got this document electronically too, so if you're really curious, I have the full educational law linked here and some of the commissioner's regulations, some sort of easy reading at night. But essentially, some of the key components here are making sure that we recognize the multiple dimensions of health, not just physical well-being, but also the mental well-being. In the past, that really wasn't strongly embedded within the curriculum. And also discouraging the use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, primarily opioids that have been on the rise, but across the board, particularly as we move into middle school and high school, that's a bit more loaded into the curriculum. Additionally, they focused a bit on making sure there was a sequential health education program for all students, particularly in the elementary grades, where we find middle school and high school a bit more robust. They're ensuring that elementary grades also, and I know Dr. Ilg was very excited to look at this summer with some of his staff. In addition to that, ensuring that there's continued health guidance for our secondary students, if you will, particularly focusing on the drug and alcohol use. And I noticed you had mentioned the vaping, and we're going to share an example of some of the things we're discussing and middle school's already done, and some of you may be aware, I know you're all aware of that night, and we'll share that momentarily. Lastly, some of the key points within the regulations include personalized health guidance. So for each student, it's kind of like what we do with instructional purposes. We have our Tier 1 instruction for all students, right? So that's that mental health curriculum. But then as we climb up the tiers into Tier 1 and Tier 2, what are we doing for higher needs students? What are we doing for groups of students who are struggling with a particular item? What are we doing for individual students who are really struggling? And how are we doing that internally and also with our connections within the community? The other area highlighted here we talk about is again, the grades 4 to 6 in particular, planned units of study, and then who's going to be delivering those. That was a conversation this summer, I know, with Dr. Ilg, Dr. Otto did a great deal in leading, and Dr. Shanahan as well, talking about how we're going to do that, particularly at the elementary grades where we don't have health teachers. We have our classroom teachers, and how are we going to do that in collaboration with our PPS staff and make that work for our students and deliver all of the services that they need. So, as you can tell, and I put this together, and again, I'm making sure to highlight the fact that this really connects well with our strategic plan. Those mandated best practices within the state guidelines focus on mental health education in the classroom, a la Priority 1, the school and community agency partnerships, Priority 2, and then embedding mental health into well-being and supportive school culture and climate. That's really one of our big focuses in Priority 3 with our strategic plan. I'm sorry. So I know you can't read this on the left, and it's not intended to, but essentially what's on the left is some of what our team got to look at this summer. Our first goal was to pull together a committee of folks that represent all those that would be delivering this support for students. Our PPS staff, some of whom are here this evening, including all our school psychologists, social workers, and counselors, along with some of our general education teachers, particularly at the elementary level, where they'll be involved with this instruction and need that support to make sure they understand the curriculum. And then, of course, our health educators through Dr. Ilg's office. What they did this summer is essentially do a review of the framework that New York State put out, and that's a sample of what you see on the left. And what you really just want to understand is that, without being able to read it, and again, I know you can't, but essentially these are some of those key indicators throughout the document here. And then as you move across, what you'll find is these are examples of what that would look like from the elementary curriculum to the intermediate to middle to high, so there's vertical alignment across all those indicators. And that's the work that our teachers had to do this summer and continue to do, essentially so we have good vertical alignment. The framework focuses on those 3 bullets there: self-management, relationships, and resource management. The state really tried to focus in on some of those dimensions there, and all those dimensions are included in all of these factors, which include not just physical education, but health education, nutrition, and then social emotional learning. That last piece was the real huge addition to the curriculum that's come out. So just in review, so the action steps to date. We've made sure that this is a strong collaboration between our PPS office, the special education, as well as our health and PE staff. So there's that collaboration, as I said before, not just between the classroom teachers, but also health educators and our psychologists, social workers, and counselors. So once that group was established, we wanted to review the instructional guide, which is an example you saw on the left, and then do a gap analysis of that to what we're currently doing, to what needs to be done, and then what curriculum work needs to be done to support those gaps, and then of course professional development. And I want to make sure I thank Dr. Otto, who can't be here yet. She's coming back after the break, which we'll be so excited to have her back. And Dr. Ilg, who I know, oh, he's still here. Who the two of them really led the charge here. So I appreciate it. It's always good to have great people around you. And I know they're appreciative for the staff who supported a lot of this work too. And we've got four of them here tonight, one in spirit. So in terms of the professional development, what we started, and these were things we already had in place, as I said before, luckily we had some things already moving forward. In order to make sure the staff really feels as if they're armed, because truly our teachers are our first line of defense for students who are struggling with mental health issues or substance abuse issues. They see these students every day and can recognize symptoms or factors that may cause red flags to go up. So having said that, we wanted to make sure we arm them properly. So what we focused on professional development for the first opening days of this school year was a program called Mental Health First Aid and Suicide Safety for Teachers. And what happened is all of our teachers and teaching staff, our teaching assistants as well, spent the first days flip-flopping between one training and the other with some of our trainers, and one of them is here tonight. She's going to share a little bit of a summary in a second, but I also want to thank not just Jen, but also Leslie Barr from Windermere, who is one of our certified trainers, Pam Primerano, Dr. Lee Worrell, Christy Scalzo, and Danielle Wolf at the high school. So they all spent a lot of time in those opening days training our staff on what, to be honest with you, are very difficult subject matter. We had teachers that were emotionally reacting to experiences they've had in the past, but they stuck it out because they all want to do what's best for our students. But having said that, Jen's going to just give a quick overview of these two.
So we, the social workers and some of our psychologists were trained last spring. We went for training for mental health first aid as well as suicide prevention. And what we learned there, we were able to turnkey and teach to our teachers and staff in the fall. What mental health first aid really hones to do is to really help to show and teach the key signs and symptoms of some of the most common mental health disorders, so that teachers can recognize if those things are happening in their students, if they're recognizing those signs and symptoms, and know how to react and how to respond. We also gave them some tools as to what to say and do in those times when they're noticing these things, and then also taught them how to do what's called a gentle handoff. So making sure that they're able to recognize those things and be able to build that relationship with that student, that trusting relationship, and then seek out one of the staff that's trained, this PPS staff, our school counselors, and our other mental health trained staff in our district. Teachers really enjoyed it and really liked being able to just have more information and more ideas of what to do in those circumstances, and really felt, I just think, more confident if they're to notice any sort of mental health issues in their students.
So, and after the training, it was clear to us that when you walk out of a training, you don't always remember everything you learned, right? And you want to feel a little more confident, not just for those few hours, but for the rest of the year and in the days and years to come. So what we did as a group was create some protocols for follow-up so they could reference back to some of the key points from the training that they went through. So the first was the mental health risk protocol, which referenced back to our mental health first aid training and our suicide safety for teachers training. So in the future, so you don't have to memorize everything you learn. What do you do in a situation where a student comes in and is demonstrating some signs of depression, for example? How do I follow up? Because certainly as a teacher, I'm not a mental health professional. But what do I do to support my students to make sure they're getting the services they need? So that's a protocol, and it's a bit of a flow chart that we created for them to reference. And the other was a response to tragedy. And again, just like we do for our curriculum instruction, we assure that there is a common language of instruction, right, for our teachers. So we're all talking the same talk and delivering instruction to our students to ensure that they're all learning. Similarly speaking, when there's a tragedy, we want to make sure that we have the same common language as well, so that everyone's responding in a similar fashion and we're not going in all different directions, especially in time of stress. We all want to make sure we're rowing in the same direction. So those documents have been created, shared out with our administration, shared out with our PPS staff, and are accessible through our Google Docs, of course. And I think it provides a sense of calm, at least for not just our staff, but for our administrators too. I know, and Mrs. Flanagan's here too. I know we even spoke about how she wanted to make sure they were there, because in those cases, you got to go to somewhere and you got to know exactly what you want to do because you don't want to think about that. You just want to do the right thing. So I'm going to, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to share a little bit. What does it look like? What does some of this work already look like in our building? So we're going to go through Smallwood, Windermere Middle School, and then we'll share Dave on video, and then we'll be closing up for you.
So this year at Smallwood, we've continued with our Second Step curriculum. Second Step is a research-based program that helps to teach social emotional learning. It really hones in on starting to help kids understand how to be good listeners, and then it talks about how to build positive friendships. After that, it goes into teaching empathy and how to use empathy, how to, as well as coping skills in their own lives, and then also problem-solving skills. So that was taught in whole group in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. In 3rd, 4th, and 5th, it was small group. And our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders whole group also received Steps to Respect, which is part of the Second Step curriculum, but hones more in on bullying prevention and those type of skills. We've also at Smallwood continued with our counseling support services involves individual and group counseling, as well as any family supports that are needed or referrals that need to be made. And last, as I know you've heard at our Smallwood Strategic Plan, our mindfulness initiative, which has been a school-wide initiative to really hope to promote positive coping skills. Students have really loved watching our videos this year. We've made videos with our puppet Rory, who's really helped to teach some of those mindfulness skills to students, helping them to know that when they have strong feelings, what can they do about those strong feelings? How can they calm themselves in a positive way so that they can make positive decisions when they're in those stressful moments and times? We also have teachers have incorporated this, of course, throughout their day, using short videos and exercises to help promote mindfulness and just awareness of feelings and awareness of things going on around them. And of course, our tiger breaths and helping teachers and students to just have positive experiences throughout the school day.
At Windermere, that was discussed, Responsive Classroom was presented as part of our strategic plan at a previous meeting, but to just kind of highlight the kind of tenets of that and how it relates to mental health. The core belief of Responsive Classroom is that the social emotional learning and skills that students need to be lifelong learners really is just as important as those academic skills. So the focus in the social emotional skills would be the cooperation, the responsibility, assertiveness, empathy, self-control to help those students become problem solvers and lifelong learners in school and out. To really complement those strategies and those principles and practices of Responsive Classroom, some classes have kind of incorporated what we're calling calming centers or coping corners, and that's what's pictured in the bottom picture in this slide is just an example of one of those classroom calming centers where students, the goal of that is to help them self-regulate throughout the day, so where they can independently start to recognize those signs and symptoms that Jen was talking about in regard to strong feelings and utilize a coping strategy within the classroom system, therefore making sure that they're not missing out on much instruction time as well, and really normalizing the need for that throughout the day. So in addition to that whole kind of Windermere Responsive Classroom, we're also pushing in Leslie Bars, our school social worker, and myself as the counselor, pushing in grades K through 5 to do classroom social skill lessons. So every student sees us in their classroom, helping them to learn anti-bullying strategies as well as pro-social skills and coping strategies, problem-solving strategies. In K through 2, read-alouds and songs are incorporated. So those 3 books at the top are Mrs. Barr's special books. I'm not much of a singer at the third through fifth grade. So we really work on using those pro-social skills in the classroom, doing cooperative learning together, so they'll be presented with scenarios and have to problem solve and work together. Throughout the entire building, we're really promoting the use of an I message, which is the I feel, fill in the blank, when you, whatever may be happening, please, and then what the student needs to have done to be an effective way to communicate their feelings as well as problem solve. The evidence-based second step curriculum, the use at Windermere is a little bit different. We use that in our small group counseling, both Leslie and I, and it really does complement the things
works nicely with the responsive classroom as well as all those social skill lessons that we're doing. And those students might just need a little bit more support and repetitive practice with those skills. Additionally, we continue to have the same supports that Jen highlighted in our building as well. And we're really looking to work with students in individual and group counseling on those feeling identification skills, the problem solving and coping strategy skills, identifying positive friendship qualities. And a lot of times you'll hear throughout Windermere being a bucket filler. So that is how we kind of talk about those pro-social and positive skills. And when students and families need more support that can be given within the school building, we continue to partner with all of our community partners and our Gateway Longview partnership as well. Okay.
First of all, I want to thank you very much for allowing me to come in and talk about the mental health initiative here at the middle school. And I also want to say personally, to the board and to Mr. Pinella. Thank you so much for your support this last year. It's been a tough one. And your support has meant so much to our students and our faculty and our community. And it has been so important for our healing. So thank you so much for everything you've done this last year. I want to talk a little bit about our Lifelines program. This is a three-pronged approach, 3 components, beginning with prevention, and then there's an intervention and a post-vention component to this. Primarily this year, we focused a lot on the prevention piece. And the prevention piece starts with all of the training that we've just talked about, from the mental health training at the beginning of the year. There's been training to teaching assistants, to the crisis team, faculty meetings. We've all gotten together to get on the same page in terms of what our students are going to be hearing in the classroom and to review how our resources are accessed within our buildings. So we have a big parent evening coming up on May 2nd. And that is a co-sponsored event with the Suicide Coalition Foundation of Celia Spicone. And she is going to come in and talk with us about some basic information on suicide. And then also we will talk about our Lifelines program and the kinds of services that we're offering to our students in the classroom. In May, shortly after that, the week after our parent evening, we will start introducing those lessons into the classroom. So there are 4 lessons, so a unit, embedded into the 6th grade health class, and 4 lessons embedded into the 8th grade health class. They will be co-taught by the health teacher, and the counseling staff will be attached with them, co-teaching in the classroom. This meets our strategic plan goals, and it meets our mental health curriculum, and it also works with our health department. So we're really doing 2 things. We're enhancing our health curriculum, and we're also meeting our student needs through counseling services in the school. We're not stopping there. Next year, our plan is to have our health curriculum integration 4 sessions in 6th grade and 8th grade, and then 2 sessions in 7th grade. The kids will be learning about information about suicide. We're going to talk openly about it from an educational perspective. So we're going to be, talking to kids about the seriousness of it, that it's important if your friend talks about hurting themselves in any way, that we take that serious. There are no secrets when it comes to hurting yourself. We teach a problem-solving skill called the thinking tunnel, and it looks at helping thoughts and unhelpful thoughts and how to bring that together. And then you'll hear a term called trusted adult, and that's going to be used all throughout the curriculum in the spring here. You'll see signs around, people are posting trusted adults. When you say you're a trusted adult in this building, it means that you are a person that someone can come to, and they will make sure that you get the help you need. So kids are being told about procedures and how to access resources in the school, and they're also being they talk about the qualities that they see in particular adults that make them trustworthy to them. So it may not be the counselor, it may be the coach, it may be a trusted teacher or a teaching assistant. So all throughout the school, we're expanding our access to be service children in any way possible. In the next school year, in 2019-2020, we picked Lifelines because of its adaptability, because this program was meant to be all the way through, from our elementary to our high school. We're kind of targeting middle school this year. We're a survivor school. It made sense to start here. But our hopes, and Jenna, Melissa, and I have talked, will be to move it into late elementary school as well next year, and then into the high school. Our second nationally targeted area, other than the increase in suicide from ages 10 to 13, is the 11th grade, 12th grade, and transition to college. That is, there's been an increase in that age level as well. Now, it's already embedded in our 9th grade health classes, but we are also looking to put a piece in that 11th, 12th grade range to span that gap as well, K through 12. It's a shared mission for our district. We feel strongly about it. Okay, e-cigs. Laura, you mentioned that tonight, and we had a night not too long ago, the end of March, talking a little bit about e-cigarettes. The takeaway from that is that it is increasing in adolescent age for sure. The paraphernalia has combined, and it looks like a flash drive now. Used to be kind of bulky. It's vaping materials now can be easily fit into a pencil case or into your pocket. We have to be careful about that. E-cigarettes, when they came out 10 years ago, were meant to help people stop smoking, and that was the intended version for that, or the intended use of that, and that has not proved itself out. So research does not support that. What it does support is that it is a gateway. It's a gateway to traditional smoking, so people who start vaping often lead to smoking cigarettes anyway, and then it's also leading into synthetic marijuana, gateway to those types of drugs as well. Additional research is coming out about the toxicity of the chemicals used, so the propylene and the glycerol and the formaldehyde that's used in vaping is most likely cancer causing. So the long-term research is not there, but clearly vaping is dangerous. And I know that I think people were sold on the fact that maybe vaping's okay as long as your kid's not smoking pot or doing anything else, and that's absolutely not okay. That leads to a lot of other things. So we have to raise awareness and make sure that we're being careful about that. There's also a lot of information out there about secondhand emissions. Just like we used to look at secondhand smoke, secondhand emissions from these toxins are proving to also be dangerous to other people. And vaping can be done indoors and hidden a little bit easier. So these are things that we're all preparing for, and as you mentioned, things like looking at detectors in the bathrooms, things of that nature, we're certainly looking at to make sure that we stay in control of that situation, both at our middle school and our high school.
And Mrs. Terry, in addition to the parent night, we also have a pretty comprehensive education program for the kids embedded within our health curriculum. And then if a student is caught in violation of our code of conduct, in addition to disciplinary consequences, we link them up with an education program to help them make better choices moving forward.
Yeah.
And having observed one of those education programs, I'm working with the administration in the middle and high school to expand that message proactively to all kids above and beyond our health classes. So it's multi-layered, but we thought we needed to get started with information for parents in addition to educating our kids, and then in addition to reacting to the kids that are caught or using the e-cigarettes. So it's a pretty comprehensive approach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Lastly, I just wanted to make note that at the middle school level, we're continuing with our bully prevention program, discussing basic common language in our 6th grade classrooms. In 7th grade, we talk about bystander bullying, and 8th grade, the cyberbullying. Internet safety is all the way through middle school. And we were talking earlier at our advisory council meeting, and they teach internet safety starting in kindergarten. And it's part and parcel now of pretty much everything we do all the way through. So, thank you.
All right, so I won't pretend to be Dave, so we will. I encourage you, if you could keep your slide out, what I'll do is I'll just play his video and he can review his. We actually asked him, if you know Dave, he's an avid cyclist. We asked him to show up on his bike on the screen with his helmet and everything, and he just didn't think that was a good idea. We thought it was an excellent idea. But he'll share a little anecdote at the end, actually, that connects to stress management. So because truly, mental health well-being is not just about stress and anxiety and sadness and so forth. It's about the proactive pieces, and that's really what is loaded within the curriculum and the work that's being done throughout the district. And as I said before, you start with that for all students. How do we support them? Things like setting goals, being self-aware. All of these things they start your foundation. And as we move up, if kids have greater needs, that's where we jump in. If you notice, all these slides almost do that. We talk about what we do for all, what we do for some, and what we have to do for some individuals at times. So I'll let Dave review the high school component.
Hi, this is Dave Benton, school counselor at the high school. First off, I want to apologize. I cannot be at the board meeting tonight, but this is such an important time, such an important presentation that I wanted to be a part of it. So, high school updates as far as the mental health wellness curriculum. In the fall, all the counselors, along with our social worker, Daniela Wolf, pushed into Health 9 to implement a curriculum called More Than Sad, which is a DVD and lesson plan series on suicide and teen depression. It did a good job at not only educating students on the issues of teen depression and suicidal ideation, the warning signs, symptoms, treatment plans, and other topics related to that, but it also did a really good job at destigmatizing the issue and really understanding students should understand that there's nothing to be ashamed about, that this is an issue that comes up and it needs to be dealt with, and it can be dealt with. So a lot of messages of hope with regards to intervention and treatment plan. That was followed up by other topics in health class. Daniela pushed in for stress and anxiety management, teen dating, healthy relationships, and dating violence, as well as bullying and cyberbullying, all very important topics at the high school level. Counselors and social worker also right now are actually meeting to discuss how we're going to piggyback on what the middle school is doing with regards to the Lifeline program to implement that program in 2019-20 up at the high school in health or whatever other footprint we can have at the high school for implementing that curriculum. Also, there's been serious discussion about trying to implement a 9th grade, just a general wellness curriculum. We don't know for sure whether we'll be able to start it this year or not, but we thought it was important, especially as we head into the latter part of the year, the issues that come up with regards to stress and anxiety, both personally, but also with relationships, and also academically in terms of time management, students seeing high-stakes exams for the first time, as well as the issue of students really, leading into the summer where they don't have as many resources, they don't have the school resources, they don't have the school counselors or other trusted teachers to talk with, to try to help empower them in terms of their resourcefulness and their strategies when they need that extra layer of support outside of school. So those are some of the updates from the high school. I said I would make a bike reference. I have my chain ring clock here. One of my go-to strategies when I'm stressed is biking. And I always talk to the students about different things that they can employ. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be exercise. It can be talking to a trusted friend. It can be listening to music or writing in a journal. Sending a message of hope to students that there are a lot of things out there, some things that can be very simple, because sometimes students don't see the things that maybe are right in front of them that can help them. So wanted to leave you with that. Have a good rest of the night. Thanks for letting me speak. Take care.
So, what are the next steps? So we're still within a lot of moving parts still. So we, as you may recall from the beginning, we've really focused our work on making sure we have the legislation and the mandates down, and ensuring that we have a really robust and aligned curriculum across the district and within and among our staff, between the classroom teachers, our PPS staff, and our health educators. As we move forward, we'll continue to work not only on improving that, but also ensuring that those other embedded pieces of larger culture and climate are built upon, such as behavior support teams, and I'll share more of that in the future, but somewhat self-explanatory. Our Family Support Center idea and our collaboration here locally in Amherst. And then, of course, wellness programming, as I said earlier, to build on the already good work that Dr. Ilg's done with our students, try to do the same kind of thing with our own staff. So, having said that, that's our next work. So thank you. Summer's almost here, so we thought we'd do a little ice cream on. Any questions?
It's a very comprehensive approach. I know, like many state requirements, the initiation date is July 1, but the guidance comes out long after that. So knowing that we had to have this in place by July 1, 2019, we proactively planned to have this be one of the focuses of our admin retreat. So the members of the PPS staff came and trained our administrators in the mental health first aid and suicide prevention. And then we really spent a day or two diving into the mandates and unpacking them and doing self-evaluations of our buildings. That helped our administrators then approach our PPS staff along with our health and phys ed staff to address the curriculum piece. But there's also two other pieces there that Mr. Belisle mentioned that we will continue to address, which is the school environment and the community partnerships. So it's really a three-pronged approach of curriculum, school environment, and community partnerships. And I'm very proud of what we've done so far, because in a short period of time, we've put together a program that is a model, I think, for other districts across the state. And I also can see where we're headed, and it's going to continue to be very positive. So thank you. The last piece under the superintendent student cabinet dovetails nicely with what Mr. Belisle had presented here towards the end, and Mr. Dave Benton. I met with the superintendent student cabinet at the high school on March 7th, and we talked about, we started talking about extracurricular offerings as part of our strategic plan, where we're auditing extracurriculars. And then it went into a discussion about student needs as it relates to programming outside of the classroom, things like assembly programs, extracurricular offerings, initiatives that kids might benefit from. So, of course, the International Women's Day celebration came up as one of the topics, with May being Mental Health Awareness Month. The students would like to see some kind of planning around that. In addition to continuing some of the stuff we do around acceptance and diversity in the building. So those conversations are very fruitful and very generative. And I'm thankful that our student leaders take the time at 7:45 in the morning to come in early and meet with us to share with us their concerns and or suggestions. I think we're on to new business.
All right. All right, boys, you've been patient over there. We're getting to it here. I will need a motion for new business items.
Yay.
I'll make a motion for new business items E1, A through K, 2, A through E, and 3B, C, E, F, and H.
You have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving new business items E1, A through K, 2A through E, and 3B, C, E, F, and H, please say aye. 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 Motion carries 7-0. First of all, I'd like to congratulate our current team members, two of which we have here in the audience tonight, Mr. Ike, Mrs. Walter. Congratulations on you receiving tenure. That's And also, I'd like to welcome a new team member, Mrs. Steger. Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you.
Mrs. Custodi, do we have any follow-up action items?
I have one, and that is to promote video board meetings in the budget newsletter and at the budget vote.
Great.
Thank you.
We have no executive session tonight, yay. So I will need a motion to adjourn. You have a second? Second. Mr. Smith. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody, for coming.